'Twas the night before Christmas, the house locked up tight. Yet a shadow approached in the dead of the night. With a glimmering axe, so lively and quick, I knew in a moment it must be Saint Nick.
Kind of been drifting my whole life. I'm ready for something real.
Looking for something? Are you okay? I'm gonna figure out what's going on in there.
You, had no idea.
What?
Naughty.
How many people have you killed?
A lot.
Do you have to dress like Santa?
It helps me slip from Billy into something else. Punish.
Wait. Keep it on.
Are you ready for this? Naughty.
Have you been a good boy?
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the latest episode of Fresh Cuts, which I think is our final episode of the year. This is Mike, and joining me, as always, it's Mr. Venom. What's up, Venom?
Greetings and salutations, Psycho Santas. Yep, I'm doing pretty well, hoping to avoid some Psycho Santas this holiday season, but yeah, I'm doing pretty great. How the hell you doing?
I am doing well, trying to lock down any remaining 2025 movies I haven't watched. The cram session has kind of begun, but I'll be doing more of that in the next couple of weeks. Right now, it's like more kind of compiling lists, figuring out like what is actually eligible and what not, because I think I've watched most of what there is. I mean, other than like the crazy or like the very tiny budget stuff you'd find on like Tubi or like hiding on Prime somewhere. Like I think most of the stuff that like I'd even be interested in watching, I either have already watched or at least like I have it compiled on my like to-do list. But other than that, doing good. How about you, Don? Welcome to the show as always.
Yeah, doing good. Always happy to be here.
All right, so how fitting that our final episode of the year centers around a killer in a Santa suit. I mean, I guess technically you would call it a Killer Santa movie because this is the Silent Night, Deadly Night remake. Sort of a remake. I mean, it has elements, but I wouldn't say it's a direct like remake. But I mean, we'll get into that more.
It's kind of more along the lines of that reboot phrase. I've seen that one tossed with that one quite a bit.
Yeah.
Don't overthink it. Stop overthinking it.
I mean,
It's
it's a remake, but I mean, I'm just saying is that I've seen reboot quill tossed around with this one almost as much.
Yeah, it's a dude in a Santa suit killing. So, like, to that extent, it's a remake. Okay. So, it's, yes, the Silent Night, Deadly Night remake. It got a theatrical release. We were able to see it in the theater, although I don't know how much this was, like, promoted or even advertised because it doesn't seem like. I don't know. We had a decent crowd at my theater, nothing like over the top, but it also was only getting evening and night screenings here for whatever reason. But let's see. Synopsis: a child witnesses his parents' murder by a man in a Santa suit. Years later, as an adult, he dons a Santa costume himself and embarks on a violent quest for retribution against those responsible for the traumatic event from his childhood. Kinda, sorta.
yeah, that last sentence doesn't make any sense
Yeah,
at all. Why do they do that?
It's almost as if that would have been more of a remake line.
Kinda.
Yeah.
I mean, I
That's
don't
the synopsis for the original, more so. Anyways, all right. So, Silent Night, Deadly Night, 2025. Venom. What are your general thoughts?
All right. Well, I'm very happy to say that I get to end 2025 with a movie that I fucking loved. Yes, I absolutely love this movie. Now, I will caveat that by saying that I am not the biggest fan of the original Silent Night, Deadly Night. I enjoy it, it's okay. It may have been, it was one of the first like ultra controversial slashers that got like banned in theaters and pissed off Christian groups and everything. So it's got a history, and I'll definitely give it that. It's a fairly influential, might not be the right word, but I mean it did pretty much create its own subgenre of the killer Santa movie. So I'll give it that. But ultimately, I look at Silent Night, Deadly Night as just a color by numbers slasher. A little kid witnesses a trauma when he's young and he grows up to be a serial killer. Ooh, how fucking original. Well, folks, I am very happy to say that they subverted expectations with this movie. Now, it's obviously not going to work for a lot of people. I've seen multiple reviews of people absolutely panning this movie, and that's fine. As I've said a million times, all opinions are valid. If you hated it, fine. If you loved it, cool. I'm not going to give you any shit because you don't agree with my review. But for me, I enjoyed this movie greatly, so much so that I went to see it a second time the very next day. I wanted to see it again that badly. I gotta say, I am into Mike P. Nelson as a director. This is now his second horror remake that I'm very high on. And if you guys remember when we did the Wrong Turn review on this show, the Wrong Turn remake, I think I was the highest on that one too. I just absolutely loved how Mike Nelson changed the story, totally subverted our expectations. We didn't, we actually got somewhat of a surprise. And just like this movie is going to be the same as Wrong Turn, it's going to be divisive. The hardcores who love the original are probably going to pan this one and hate it and be like, what did they do to Billy Chapman and blah, blah, blah. But ultimately, for me, this movie checked off a lot of boxes. The pacing is great. There's no waiting. It gets right into it. Not a lot of character development. What character development we do get, we actually get as the story progresses rather than having long segments of character development. We get a couple of gory kills, not a lot. I mean, despite this thing being advertised as brought to you by the studio that made Terrifier 2 and 3, it does not remotely come close to either of those films as far as its level of gore, its depravity, just its mean-spiritedness. And what's funny is I look at the original Silent Night, Deadly Night as a very mean-spirited movie, and this one is just the complete opposite. Obviously, we can't get into direct storylines. I went ahead and watched the trailer before we started this episode just so that I know what I can talk about in the spoiler-free section. But I mean, I gotta say, I love Billy in this one. I even like the romance in this movie. And folks, longtime listeners know that I hate forced romances in my horror movies. Absolutely fucking hate them. But in this movie, it worked for me. And especially the way that the romance culminated absolutely fucking worked for me. I'm on board for Billy and Pamela. I thought they were great together. I enjoy their scenes together. I didn't feel, it's a very fast romance. I mean, literally within 3 days of meeting each other, they're in bed together. So, it does go quick. You kind of have to suspend disbelief there. But just Pamela's personality, the kind of person that she is, absolutely worked for me. Billy's motivation for what he's doing in this movie 100% worked for me, which obviously we can't get into. And of course, that scene, the scene that everyone is talking about, which is not mentioned in the trailer, so I'm not going to talk about it during the spoiler-free session. But goddamn, that scene was fun as hell. Like I said, I saw the movie twice. The first time I saw it, the theater was fairly empty because it was a Saturday morning or a Friday morning. It was a Friday morning. Obviously, most people work Friday mornings, but I happened to have this past Friday off. So I went to see it in the morning and it was pretty dead. But then I went to see it again last night. So obviously for a Saturday night, it was a packed theater and they had a blast with it. People laughing at all the right parts, freaking out at all, at the couple of fairly gory scenes that we got in the movie. There's not a lot, but I mean, we get a couple of decent ones. And then even our ending, like when the movie ended, there was actually applause. Like people applauded this goddamn movie. Let me repeat myself. Silent Night, Deadly Night 2025 got applause at one of my screenings. And I agree with all of those people that were applauding it. Like I said, this movie works for me in almost every way. I didn't roll my eyes once. I didn't cringe at any line deliveries or acting performances. I mean, no one in this movie is stellar as an actor by any stretch. But I will say bravo to Rowan Campbell for finally getting out of the shadow of Corey Cunningham, because anytime I saw that man's face, all I could think of was Halloween Ends and just the atrocious way that they ended one of my favorite horror franchises ever. But he makes up for it a little bit here. And ultimately, I don't blame Rowan Campbell for Halloween Ends. He didn't make the movie. He didn't write it. Obviously, he's a victim of circumstance with that one. But with this one, he got on board with a good director. And yes, I know Michael Nelson directed Sweet Revenge from earlier this year, which has become a very divisive Friday the 13th short. Some people hate it. Some people love it. There's very few people that are in the middle. Ultimately, I mean, is it an extended commercial for Wild Orchid apple cider? Yeah, kind of. But does it have some good kills, and does it have Jason doing Jason things? Yes. So ultimately, I was on board for it. I'm not going to say it's great. It's definitely not as good as any of the Vincent DeSanti, Never Walk Alone movies by any stretch. But for whatever it's worth, I'm a Jason stan, so I'm going to love pretty much everything that there is with Jason in it. Anyway, back to Silent Night, Deadly Night. I am very happy that this was the last movie. I mean, I'll probably watch a couple of more, movies that I haven't seen yet, just to kind of, fill in any gaps that I have. But I absolutely love this movie. No, it will not appear in my top 10. It's not a masterpiece by any stretch of the imagination. If you know anything about my personality, if you know anything about, and I've said it on this show countless times, how petty and vindictive a person that I am, and how I love movies that actually do that well. If you guys remember from earlier this year, the Pete Davidson movie, The Home. That movie is not great. It's middle of the road at best. But because of that final scene, I fucking raved about it. And because of that scene in Silent Night, Deadly Night, the one that I won't mention, I just ended up loving this movie. Obviously there's other elements. It's not just that one scene, but just once we get the reveal of what's happening, of why Billy's doing what he's doing, of who the voice in his head actually is, once we get the reveal of all that, I am totally on board for it. And, like I said, it's not going to speak to everyone. I feel like just as many people are going to hate this movie as love it, but I count me as one of those who absolutely loves it. I give this one a high recommend, not necessarily essential theater watching. Like the sound design is okay. The cinematography is, passable. It's just like a small America town. It's not like, you're getting beautiful landscapes by any stretch or anything. No nudity to speak of. So yeah, it's one of those movies that may not have a lot for certain horror fans, but for this particular horror fan, it did everything I wanted it to and more. This is the remake I had no idea I wanted. So I'll leave my general thoughts at that and kick it back to Mike.
Okay, let's go on over to Dawn for your thoughts on Silent Night, Deadly Night.
All right. Well, I'm kind of the opposite of Venom. I absolutely love the original Silent Night, Deadly Night. I probably place it in my top 10 slashers of the decade. I have so much fun with it. I love the build up. I love the unique kills, the variety of kills. The rampage again in the second half is so much fun. Yeah, I can't say it's my favorite Christmas themed horror movie. I'd probably place Krampus just slightly above it, just because I think it's a slightly more unique take on holiday horror, just rather than it is admitted Silent Night Deadly Night is a admittedly simple idea. A guy dons a Santa costume and then takes out his anger and kills people, but it's still in my top three, maybe even number two. I have so much fun with it. I think it's an absolute blast. The remake or remakequel or whatever fancy schmancy term you want to use, I think it's really good. Um, for the first 2/3 of the film, I'm definitely on board. I have a lot of fun with it. I like the way it builds the romance. I like the way it builds the burgeoning quest for vengeance. Uh, the scene in particular is an absolute standout. I have so much fun with it. The idea in general is fantastic, and the execution is top notch. I don't like what it does in the final act, and I think that's a storyline idea rather than anything else that the film itself does. I don't like where the story goes, and I don't like the idea that I don't know if I should, like, how deeply I want to spoil this, but rather than the way the original handles it, where it's one continuous rampage, like it takes place all at the same time. It's him running around this community, slaughtering people in creative ways until he's finally gunned down. It all takes place as I don't want to say it's cinema verite, but it's close enough. Like you could probably almost make a case that this would be, like one continuous train of thought. Like it's not really broken up by, like long stretches of time in between when these events are supposed to take place in the canon of the events. It's almost pretty much presented as like one continuous shot during the course of his rampage. And here it takes an opposite approach, and it kind of zaps the film of its energy, and it zaps the film of its momentum, and it kind of peters out for me. And I don't like the way that it has its standout moment to close out the second act rather than use that as the building blocks to launch into the finale, where it has this big grandiose high energy sequence, and then it just stops. It goes back to the romance, it goes back to their relationship, and it kind of shuffles along, and it kind of just drags the energy out. And the whole thing about whether or not there's this identity over who this mysterious killer is, and this bizarre police investigation that comes out of nowhere, and all of it just it kind of just drags the film out, and it kind of just limps along to this finale where it's not exactly highlighted where it's going to go, but it's pretty easy to figure out that was the intent when you start seeing how the story plays along. And it kind of just makes the third act just feel kind of lackluster and kind of weak, and it kind of drags it down a little for me. Now, I will say this is probably it's a kind of ironic. I would put the original at number one. Then I would probably put the first remake from 2012 at number two, and then I'd probably place this at number three, as in terms of how good the franchise is, just because the rest of the franchise is utter dog shit. Now, I will say number four is actually far better than the others. So it'd be one, the remake, the 2012 remake, the 2025 remake, and then number four, and then the other three are just absolute dreck that have very little business being watched. So kind of an odd franchise where you have incredible highs at the top and then very little in between, where the first four are, for lack of a better term, actually enjoyable, and then the other three are dog shit awful. But I can't say this is a bad time. It's just, like I said, the first half of this is far more enjoyable than for me, where the second, you know, the at the end of the second act going into the third act, it just kind of loses me. So and at the risk of going further and spoiling much, I'll leave it at that. But yeah, other than that, not on my top 10, not an honorable mention, but I didn't hate it. So, I mean, going out on a positive note, yeah, despite all the flaws I mentioned. But yeah, I guess I'll leave it at that and say back to you, Mike.
Okay, so the original Silent Night, Deadly Night, I enjoy. I don't think it's like any type of cinematic masterpiece or like a top slasher movie. I just think, if you want a killer Santa movie, it gets the job done with like a competent story, backstory, kills, and all that. Like it does enough to like uh end up on the list of like, movies that you want to watch during horror movies, I guess, when that you want to watch during Christmas. Um and then the rest of the franchise, yeah, varying degrees of bad. Although I will say I am due for like a rewatch of the franchise beyond the first one because the first one's really the only one I go back and watch with any type of regularity. The other ones I probably saw, renting them from the VHS store as a kid, and that might be it. Like maybe random port of the other movies. Night, I saw it in the theater. I don't think I've seen it since. I remember thinking it was okay, kind of middle of the road. So, I'm not like hot on this franchise. I didn't think like a remake was like breaking any type of uh sacred bond with like the original. I was just like, yeah, whatever. I mean, because like, and also there's plenty of killer Santa movies that like aren't Silent Night, Deadly Night, so it's not like it had any ownership over the concept of someone in a Santa suit killing people. So I was just like, whatever, we'll see. And then when the trailer came out and I saw it, I was like, the trailer looks like fine, like it could be a fine movie. Nothing too discouraging. So yeah, I saw it. I think Friday night, and it was okay. Like I think the idea was decent. I thought it was kind of mixing tonally with what kind of movie it wanted to be. I think, well, I mean, one of the cardinal sins to me was like, I found Pamela, her character, to be way more interesting than Billy in this movie. I thought Billy was just Corey Cunningham 2.0. He felt like the same character. And even the circumstances kind of around everything felt oddly familiar with what we got from Corey Cunningham before. I won't get into details, but I mean, you can put two and two together if you're familiar with the character of Corey Cunningham. I actually like what they did with a certain character in the finale to kind of set up if they were to continue or make a franchise out of this specific, like if this is a new franchise beginning, I kind of like what they did with the character at the end because judging by what we got from the characters in this movie, I'd rather see that character kind of take over because I think there's more interesting things to do with that character. I thought that character's backstory and like everything going on with them was more interesting. I wanted to know more about them, less about Billy. Um, I I actually was kind of like underwhelmed with like the gore and the kills. Like there were some good ones, like like I think Venom mentioned, there's a couple good kills in here. But if the scene that Venom's referencing is the one I think because I guess it's the controversial one among the horror community, which I don't know why. I don't know what's controversial about it. I just kind of was like, okay, here we go. And then as it was happening, I was like, the concept of what we're watching is cool, but I expected it to be way more over the top and like bloody and gory than it was, but it was okay. And yeah, I don't know. I guess it gets some points for like trying something different and new. It definitely like separated itself from what the original was. It definitely did enough to say you're not just reshooting the original one. So like I can give it some props for that. But at the end of the day, I still just felt it was like a middle of the road horror movie. Nothing that I feel like would be an annual watch or something that I need to get back to. Um, yeah, I mean, I guess that's it for non-spoilers. I liked it, didn't love it, didn't hate it. It's just kind of like a middle of the road movie to me. So I'll leave it there. Back to you, Venom.
I gotta say, I also really enjoyed all the references to the original franchise. I mean, yes, we absolutely get a Garbage Day reference, which how could you make a Silent Night, Deadly Night remake and not have a Garbage Day reference? I mean, that's, and when I saw it the second time with the packed theater, it was uproarious. Everyone in the theater, it's like I watched it with a theater full of fans of the original. Just as soon as we got that Garbage Day line, just the place went crazy. As soon as we got the antler kill, the reference to the antler kill in the original movie, again, everybody started cheering. Like, I really had a good time. I think maybe the crowd that I saw it with the second time kind of added to that enjoyment because it seemed like they all saw the same thing in the movie that I saw as far as like what they enjoyed and what they didn't, which for me was very little. I will say some of the family stuff, with the dad and Pamela's dad and all that maybe. I mean it's minimal anyway, but it does kind of drag the movie down a little bit ultimately. But I mean we do have to set up that character, Pamela's dad, for a fairly major event that happens in the third act. So I'm okay with it, for the most part. But I mean, like I said, I have very little complaints about this one. I as a fan, as a mild fan of the original, I think this was an absolute great time. But also as a fan of a fan of horror remakes that drastically change the story, I'm also on board with. Like I said, this same director did the Wrong Turn remake, which I also famously loved. I absolutely fucking loved that movie and loved the ending of that movie. Like that whole final scene just made that movie for me. This one, the scene that kind of makes it for me is in the middle of the movie, which, is okay. I do agree with Mike, though. I am totally on board with this, either becoming a new trilogy or whatever the case may be. I am absolutely on board to see where this story continues, especially, well, I can't really say that yet either, but especially because of one particular thing that happens at the end and the result of that thing. It just, to me, makes it seem endlessly more interesting. And it has so many questions too. It leaves you with a lot of questions, but not in a bad way, not like plot holes necessarily, but just like, oh man, where does it go from here? Like, blah, blah, blah. And it just like my whole car ride home on both occasions, I'm just sitting there like, oh man, I want to see a sequel because I want to see this. I want to see this. I want to see this. You know what I mean? And yeah, this movie just worked for me. Like I said, I'm not gonna call this a masterpiece. It's not a 10 out of 10. It's not a 9 out of 10. It's not even an 8 out of 10, honestly, but it just checked off so many boxes for me that I enjoyed the shit out of it. Like I said, I love seeing. I probably shouldn't say that yet. That might be a little bit of a spoiler, but I'll return to that point later on. But yeah, like I said, being only a mild fan of the original, this one just for me just felt head and shoulders better. It shot better. There's an actual budget to it. I like Billy in this one, whereas Billy in the original, as I've already said, a little kid, has trauma when he's young and he becomes a serial killer. Oh wow, we've never seen that before. I mean, we've already seen Psycho and movies like that. I don't need it in a Santa costume. Like Psycho in a Santa costume just doesn't sound all that interesting to me, and that's basically what we got in the original. Now, like I said, I will give the original all the credit in the world for what it did, for all the notoriety that it got, and the fact that a lot of people, including Don, love the movie, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with it. I like a lot of the kills in that original movie. I could live without the image of Santa Claus raping someone, which is another thing that I'm so happy that they just didn't do in this one. It's just I don't know, something. Rape is bad enough, but something about the image of Santa Claus raping someone just really makes me kind of ashamed to be,
Who did he rape? I thought it spawned because of the attack in the storeroom, but who did he rape in the original?
The mom. Remember, he ripped her shirt off. We saw her tits. Maybe he didn't fully rape her, but he was about to.
Okay, yeah.
I think it was like assault with the intention to, and then maybe he didn't get that far.
I was trying to think, I don't remember him having time to do that.
I mean, like I said, I haven't watched that movie in over 20 years. So in all honesty, maybe my memory's bad. I distinctly remember him pulling the mom out of the car, ripping her shirt off, going to undo his pants because he was, and then I don't remember where it goes from there. If the scene just cuts off before we actually see it, or if he, because in my twisted memory, we see it. We see Santa Claus mounting a woman, and that's enough for me. That's all I need to see.
Yeah, you may have misremembered because I don't remember him going that far. Because I think he gets interrupted by Billy crying out in the back seat. Because I think that stops it.
No, Billy's not in the car. Billy's out of the car when he's on top of the mom. Remember, Billy's hiding in a bush. Billy's not in the car by the time Santa pulls mom out of the car.
Oh, it's the brother that's in the car. That's what it is.
There you go.
Yeah, okay, yeah. I think we were both misremembering the scene then.
Yeah. Well, like I said, I distinctly remember Santa ripping a woman's shirt off and with the intention of violating her. So that's
I know that for a fact. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So like I said, the fact that got removed in this one for obvious reasons, because once we get the reveal of what's happening, that scene wouldn't make sense. So I'm very happy that they, kind of subverted that. Because I was literally dreading that scene. Like when we got to that scene in this movie, in the remake, and he does what he does to dad, I'm literally like, oh shit, here it comes, and it's literally going to bring the movie down for me. But then they don't do it, so I was very happy, like I said. So I don't really have anything else spoiler free to add, so unless my co-hosts have anything that they want to add, I guess we can go into the walkthrough. I'll try to make it as quick as possible, as it is the last episode of the year. It's Sunday. I know Mike and I want to get back to football, so I'll try to be as quick as possible. But Don or Mike, anybody have anything else to add before we get into it?
Nope.
Okie dokie. Here we go. Our movie opens much like the original movie. We see a young Billy Chapman. He is at a nursing home or a hospital or a hospice, maybe. He and his parents are visiting his grandfather. He is waiting out in the hall with his mother while a woman that looks suspiciously like Amy Madigan in Weapons offers him a piece of candy, but that's a story for another show. While he's there, he notices that the janitor at the facility is kind of eyeballing mom, almost like he wants to do something sexual to her, but that's pretty much it. Ends there. Mom and dad come out and they have a conversation about the father's dad who they're visiting signing his inheritance over, whatever the case may be, like giving dad either power of attorney or something along those lines. Anyway, Billy finally says, "Can I see you, Grandpa?" The parents let him go see him. We go to see Grandpa. Grandpa gives them that same cryptic message that we got in the original of, naughty boys need to be punished, blah, 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 which, of course, definitely leaves a mark on Billy's psyche. And then, unfortunately, Grandpa has a seizure. He starts spitting up blood and he passes away, unfortunately. So Grandpa is dead. And on the drive home afterwards, this is when we get the attack. As it turns out, that janitor from the facility has followed them. He is now wearing a Santa Claus suit, and at a red light, he purposely runs runs into the back end of the family's car. Dad, of course, gets out of the car to see what's going on, and as soon as the driver rolls his window down, he pulls out a shotgun and unceremoniously blows Dad away. And then we see him get out of the car, aim towards the car to try to shoot at Mom. Mom yells, "Billy, duck." And then we hear the gunshot but then that's it. We're brought to modern day. Now, that was something that I wanted to say during the general thoughts that I really enjoyed, that we don't just get the origin scene all at once. We get it in pieces. And once you get the reveal of what's actually happening in this movie, it makes total sense that we get the reveal of that scene in pieces. So that's all we get now, is that Billy's parents were murdered, after visiting his grandpa who had just died. And now Billy is a drifter. We catch up with Billy. He's on like a bus traveling, he basically is a drifter now. Later in the movie, he basically says that he's been drifting for his whole life. And obviously, if you spend the month of December every year killing people, you probably can't stay in the same city for too terribly long. So it makes sense. While Billy, on a stop on the bus ride that Billy is on, he goes to the town of Hackett. While there, he's, basically looking around. And, oh, by the way, I haven't even mentioned the fact that Billy has a voice in his head. We don't know who the voice is, but it's a very deep, guttural voice. It's like an older gentleman, like an older, almost dignified gentleman, basically speaking to him, basically saying, oh, are we going to do it again? Are we going to go out tonight and do our thing and blah, blah, blah. So it's almost like the voice is egging him on. So, of course, we're, as the viewer on our first watch, we're all thinking, oh, great, this is just going to be another crazy Santa Claus movie. But nope, they subvert that, but we'll get to that. While at the diner, he's at a diner in the town of Hackett. He sees this beautiful redhead who comes in to pick up her order, and he gets kind of fixated with her. And then the voice in his head says, oh, is she the one? Is she the one for tonight? And then the voice goes, nah, I don't see it. I don't think she's right. But Billy obviously is fixated with her for more than just wanting to kill her. He seems like he's kind of smitten with her. But we hear the voice tell him, don't you dare, don't do it. This always ends up bad for you. Or us. He actually says us. It's almost like a Venom situation. Like, his symbiote partner is talking to him in his head. I've actually heard people compare this movie to Venom because of that. So go figure. He ends up following the girl. We find out that her name is Pamela, and she works at a Christmas store, like a store that sells like Christmas trees and ornaments and things like that. It's called Ida's, Ida's Trinket Box or something like that was the name of the store. We later find out that Pamela is actually the daughter of the owner of the store. And Billy goes in to the store to try to talk to her. But Billy, obviously, he's a lifelong serial killer. He doesn't have a lot of experience with girls. He very obviously doesn't know how to talk to them. He ends up having an embarrassing situation with her where he says he's buying a Christmas gift for his father, but then he picks out a pair of earrings and a crystal unicorn, which obviously doesn't make sense. He gets embarrassed and leaves the store. He basically realizes, shit, I fucked up. I blew it. But then when he looks over, he sees that there's a now hiring sign in front of the store. He takes the sign, he goes back into the store, has a quick interview with the owner of the store, who, of course, as I already mentioned, is also Pamela's father, and he ends up getting the job. Now, on his, I actually skipped a little bit. Before he gets on that bus, we actually do get a scene where we see him in a hotel room with a dead body, someone that he just killed. And he basically sticks his finger inside of a knife wound that he put in this guy's chest. And then we see him pull out this weird advent calendar. It looks like it's made out of wood. It's a very creepy looking advent calendar. He opens up the slot for December 20th, as the date is December 20th. This whole movie takes place over 5 days. So our movie opens on December 20th. He takes that blood that he just grabbed off the dead body, and he puts it almost like a smear, almost like a fingerprint smear in the book in the slot for the 20th. And then we hear the voice in his head go, oh, just 4 more left and we're almost done. So obviously, Billy is killing someone every day in the month of December, or at least for the first 24 days of December. grabbing a piece of their blood and then putting it in this weird cryptic advent calendar, which we never really get much information on. Like, I honestly thought there was going to be some kind of like supernatural element to the advent calendar, but no, it's just Billy's way of just keeping track of everything that he does. And it's like I said, the voice in his head is basically telling him that you have to do this. This is now your objective. This is what you do. You don't have a choice. You can't say no, blah, blah, blah. So on his first day at work, he is, he's unpacking boxes, and a customer walks in, an older gentleman named George, and he walks in and he gets very chummy with Pamela. Now, obviously, he's not being like aggressive or nasty with her. He seems like he's an old friend, like an old family friend, but he kind of grabs her by the arm and rubs her arm up and down and says, "Oh, if I was 30 years younger, Pam, I would do terrible things to you," something along those lines. And then Billy starts getting these weird flashbacks that are lit in red lighting. They're just like quick flashes of scenes, with that guy, George, the old guy, where we see him kind of bloody and yelling and everything else. So it almost seems like this is Billy just kind of picturing what it's going to look like when he kills George later tonight. One of the things that I really like about this movie too is its art style. I like how they went with that kind of grindhouse art style, almost like they named the chapters. It's not really broken up into chapters, but when Billy goes into Killer Santa mode, we get these great flashes of like bright red and black images of who is going to die next. So basically the first flash says kill George, and like I said, it looks very late 70s early 80s grindhouse art style, so I definitely love that. He ends up so that night he goes to George's house, and the voice in his head is basically guiding him, telling him where to go, because obviously Billy doesn't know where these people live. He just got to this town. But the voice is guiding him, telling him, okay, this is the house right here. And then we see George get home. He goes to the bathroom. We see Billy sneak into his house, take off his boots so that he can sneak around the house quietly. We see him slowly approach George from behind. George is on his easy chair, reading a book. Billy comes up from behind with his double-sided axe, and just says his one-word catchphrase, naughty, and then buries the axe in George's head. So obviously, again, as we're watching the movie for the first time, it's fairly cut and dry. This is a crazy kid who's just going around killing one person every day in the month of December because of some trauma that he had when he was younger. Let's see, the next day, it's now the 21st, and it's Billy's second day working at the store. While there, Pamela drops a Christmas tree ornament, and she absolutely snaps. Well, she drops the ornament because she gets a phone call from someone named Max. Keep that name in the back of your head for later. She gets this phone call from a guy named Max, but she ignores it. And then because of the phone call, she ends up dropping one of those old glass Christmas tree ornaments. It falls to the floor and smashes, and she just goes ballistic. She goes, "What the fuck?" And mind you, she's in the middle of her father's store with customers around, and she absolutely just snaps. And then she ends up just like being embarrassed and walking out of the room. Later on, Pamela admits to Billy that she's got anger management issues, that all her life she's just been very explosive. Like whenever she gets angry, she doesn't bottle it up. She lets it out. She even tells a story of how she almost bit a kid's nose off in the 8th grade. So Billy instantly is like, oh, this girl's more like me than I thought she was. So obviously he is slowly getting more smitten. That afternoon, Pamela has to take her nephew to his hockey practice because Pamela's sister was busy and canceled. We never meet Pamela's sister, so who knows? Maybe we'll meet her in the sequel. I don't know. But we never even get a name or anything. Just the fact that she has a sister who doesn't go to the Christmas tree store because it's named after their dead mother, Ida. Remember I said earlier the name of the store was like Ida's Trinket Box or something like that, or Trinket Chest, something along those lines. So anyway, while at the hockey practice, we see the nephew, Pamela's nephew, and he's, kind of a younger, smaller kid compared to some of the other big kids on the team. Eventually, two of the bigger kids start bullying the nephew. They corner him, they knock his stick out of his hand, and then finally one of them just flat out checks him, like body checks him down to the ice. When Pamela sees this, she goes into fucking mother bear mode because she literally excuses herself from the conversation she's having with Billy, walks onto the ice, and unmercifully beats the shit out of one of these bullies. She literally takes a hockey stick from another kid. She undercuts him from behind. She hits him on the back of the knee first to make him go down. And then while he's down, she is swinging unmercifully at him. I'm sorry. Everybody in the theater was laughing their ass off during this scene, and I was down for it. It was great. Eventually, Pam, of course, gets arrested because she just assaulted two teenagers who are much, much younger than her, obviously, as she is a full-grown adult. And she ends up getting taken to the police station. Now, while at the hockey game, they are introduced to Delphine. Delphine is just, another member of this community. But as soon as Billy sets eyes on her, the voice in his head says she's the one. And literally, and then again, just like with George, we start getting those red flashbacks of Delphine kind of screaming, and there's blood around, and we see like a target, like a shooting range target, and suddenly a bunch of blood and sinew just kind of fly onto it. So it's almost like, oh, maybe Billy's going to kill her on a shooting range or something. But obviously they have to deal with Pamela's arrest first. So they go to the police station. While there, we find out who Max is. Max is Pamela's abusive ex-boyfriend. And of course, he's a fucking cop. And as it turns out, he was able to talk to the parents of the kid who got assaulted. And he basically said, he tells Pamela that they're not going to press charges because if they actually did the bullying that she says that they did, then they probably deserve the ass whooping. So literally, she beat the shit out of two teenagers and just gets to walk out of the police station. But obviously, Max talks about how he misses her. And then Pamela instantly is like, you punched me in the fucking face. And of course, the first thing Max says is, but I didn't mean to. Excuse me, explain to me how you didn't mean to punch the woman you supposedly love in the face. Like, that's not something that happens by accident, unless you do it while you're sleepwalking or something. But that's, again, a story for another show. So we get the backstory of Max and Pamela. They had a relationship. Max was abusive, and now he's a stalker. Now he's basically stalking her because we see him multiple times throughout the movie kind of following her and watching her and Billy. Obviously, Billy being the new, young, good-looking kid in town who works at Pamela's store, Pamela's family's store. So obviously, he's getting jealous. So anyway, that night, what do you call it? I'm sorry. Billy borrows Pamela's car to go and find Delphine. And again, the voice in Charlie's head is kind of guiding him, saying, where the fuck are we going? We've been driving for over an hour. And the voice goes, oh, I know where they are. Don't worry about it. We're going to be there soon. Eventually, he gets to like a barn where a bunch of people are having a Christmas party. There's Christmas decorations everywhere. As Billy approaches the front door, we see a rack with guns, like literally just a rack of rifles and shotguns and everything else. And the security guy says, hey, Santa, are you packing? Santa says no. He lets the guy, search him, pat him down. And he's not armed. Luckily, he didn't bring his axe with him quite yet. So then he walks into the party. And when he first walks into the party, everybody is dressed like Santa Claus. Men, women, everybody. Literally every single fucking person is dressed as Santa Claus. So he kind of freaks out real quick. But then he looks up and sees something that makes his facial expression change. We as the audience don't see it quite yet. They withhold that information from us. until Delphine walks out on the stage and addresses the crowd of people. That's when the camera pans up and shows the giant swastikas up on the stage. Yes, my friends, it's a fucking Nazi Christmas party. What did they call it in the movie? A white power Christmas. That's what it was. It's a white power Christmas. So yes, Billy, in his, search for Delphine, has run into a den of Nazis in the town of Hackett, which, by the way, how great is the town's name considering what Billy does? Hackett. I love it. So Billy sees that he's at a big Nazi function, and he walks out and he goes back to his car to get his axe. The voice in his head then says, okay, so what's the plan? Are we going to wait for her we're going to wait to separate her from the crowd? Are we going to wait till she goes home and we're going to get her there? And Billy is like, nah, I'm killing all of them. And the voice in his head is like, whoa, you're one guy with an axe and there's about 24 people in that party. And the voice even says, at least take a gun with you. And that's when Billy says, guns are for pussies, which at first I'm thinking, wow, what an idiot. Like that's almost like a death sentence right there. But when we see Billy's skills with the axe, it makes sense that he went in there without a gun. He ends up taking the axe from his car, going back to the party. The security guard once again asks him if he's packing, but this time Billy's got an axe with him and he unceremoniously cuts down the security guard. Then he walks back into the party and padlocks the door so people can't get out. And then he turns around and the music starts to swell up and he just starts swinging, and holy shit, he hits one guy in the midsection, pulling his intestines out. So we see the intestines kind of spilling out of his stomach, multiple people getting limbs cut off, multiple people getting chopped in the top or the back of the head. Of course, because this is a meeting with about 24 Nazis, some people do end up fighting back. So a couple of people end up hitting them with like pool cues and whatnot, like weapons. Obviously, no one has a gun because they all had to check their gun outside the party. So, one guy stabs him in the shoulder. Another guy beats him with a pool cue, but eventually Billy is able to get the upper hand on all of them. And then suddenly Delphine from the other room hears the commotion, goes out to the main room and sees that there's a Santa killing all the other Santas in the room. So she doesn't know what the hell's going on, but she doesn't take the time to find out. She goes and gets herself a semi-automatic weapon and just starts mowing down the crowd. I don't think she's doing it intentionally. She's trying to kill the one Santa who's holding an axe in his hand, but Billy, obviously, since he's been doing this for so long, and as we find out later in the movie, he's been doing this for 10 years. So obviously, Billy is pretty adept at what he's doing by this point. He does end up taking a bullet in the leg, but he is able to get away from Delphine. As it turns out, Delphine ended up killing everybody else at the party that Billy didn't. So Billy doesn't even get the pleasure of killing all the Nazis. He got to kill a bunch of them, and then Delphine just mowed down the rest of them. Delphine then just makes a break for it. She tries to get away. The voice in Billy's head says, oh, don't worry about it. I know where she's going. And then we see that she is on a snowmobile going through the woods, obviously probably either going to the police department or going back home. But then we see the camera pan around showing Billy hiding behind one of the trees. And then he basically chops her head off at the mouth. So it's not a full decapitation. It's at the mouth. So, which actually, I like those a lot more. They look so much grittier to me. It's very much like the Wrong Turn decapitation, the original Wrong Turn, not the remake. So yeah, that's the end of Delphine. But of course, Billy is all beat up. He's got a black eye. The next morning, he has to, show up looking like this with the black eye, bruises on his arms. He's got a very obvious limp because he was shot in the leg. We do get to see a fairly painful scene where he takes the bullet out himself because obviously he can't go to a hospital considering what he does. So he's sitting there with a pair of forceps and a bottle of vodka, basically just getting the bullet out. The next morning, when Billy gets to work, he sees that there's police all over the streets. There's police interviewing people on the street. There's police cars parked in front of the gift shop that he works at. And when he walks in, that's when Pamela lets him know that, they found George's body. Apparently, George was murdered last night or whatever. And obviously, Billy is playing dumb. He doesn't know what's going on. But then Pamela says something that pretty much turns the entire movie on its ear. She says, they found George's body, in his house, but that's not even the weirdest thing. The police also found his wife's body wrapped in a carpet in his basement. As it turns out, George killed his wife 15 years ago, wrapped her in a fucking carpet, and then just put her in the basement. And I guess probably just told people that she left him or whatever, or maybe he was able to fake that she died of natural causes and he had a private funeral or whatever, blah blah blah. But yeah, as it turns out, Billy is not just randomly killing people. And obviously, the Nazi scene is like the first clue that Billy's not just killing random people. Yes, my friends, the voice in his head is telling him the bad people in this town and what they've done. So those quick red flashes that we get whenever he looks at someone and the voice in his head. Oh, and by this point in the movie, we do find out that the voice in his head is Charlie, the guy that killed his parents, the original, Santa Claus killer. So why is Charlie in his head? Well, we get more of the flashback now of the original scene 20 years ago. After Santa killed Billy's father, he then went around to go and kill Billy's mother, but she ends up stabbing him with her high heel. Like she kicks him in the throat, impaling him with her high heel. As Charlie, dressed as Santa, kind of flails back, he pulls the trigger on his shotgun, spreading Mom's head all over the inside of the car. Then Billy walks out of the car. Both of his parents are dead. Charlie, dressed as Santa Claus, is on the ground about to die. He's basically gurgling, going through his death rattle. But he reaches his hand out, and basically Billy grabs his hand. While they are hand in hand, we see like a special effect with lightning, and we see that Charlie's, you want to call it a soul, you want to call it a presence, whatever you want to call it, Charlie's soul is then goes into Billy. So the voice that Billy is hearing, he's literally been hearing in his head since the day that his parents died, the day that Charlie killed his parents. Now, you're probably asking yourself, why did Charlie kill his parents? If these people that have this ability are only going around killing the guilty, why did he kill Billy's parents? Well, as it turns out, Billy's parents poisoned Billy's grandfather to get that inheritance money. Apparently, Billy's parents were doing poor financially. So they came up with a plan where, grandpa would sign over everything to dad. And then they literally gave him 2 pills of something. I don't know if it was cyanide or, whatever the case may be, but it was definitely poison. They basically swapped out grandpa's normal medication for these 2 pills. And then basically minutes after grandpa took those pills, that's when he starts spitting up blood right in front of Billy, which freaks Billy out, of course, blah, blah, blah. So there's the explanation of why Billy's parents were killed. They were not as innocent as originally thought. So yes, that is our big reveal that Billy is actually punishing the guilty. He's basically the Punisher. He's not just a crazy kid going around killing people who have sex, like in the original, or, who do things that he deems naughty, if you will. He is literally punishing the guilty. Now, It is now December 23rd, right? I mean, he killed George on the 20th, Delphine on the 21st. Who else? Did I skip one? Oh well. He might have killed somebody else on the 20, but then on the 22nd, but then on the 23rd, like I said, 3 days after they meet, Pamela and Billy end up having a sexual encounter because Billy ends up playing. We get this great scene where Billy plays a Santa Claus at the store. But the voice in his head, Charlie, is telling him, don't do it, dude. If you put that Santa Claus costume on head to toe, you're going to lose control. You're not going to be able to control yourself. Billy, of course, being smitten with Pamela, wants to do her the favor because, as it turns out, George, the old guy that he killed, usually plays Santa Claus at this store every year. But obviously, George has now a giant axe wound in his head, so he won't be playing Santa anytime soon. We get this scene where the first little girl that sits on his lap, he starts to freak out. The scene goes red. Again, like I said, he's basically in his kill mode, but he's trying not to. And at one point, he even pulls out a box cutter and pulls the blade out of the box cutter, ejects the blade. And we hear Charlie's voice in his head going, Billy, you're not going to kill this little girl. Billy, do not kill this little girl. And we see Billy kind of struggling. Like, he hasn't even said anything yet. This little girl's been sitting on his lap for probably a good 30, 40 seconds at this point, and he still hasn't said a word to her. So finally, Charlie says, okay, kid, I'm going to get you through this. Just repeat everything I say. And that's when Charlie starts with his Santa Claus spiel. Hey, little girl, what's your name? And then Billy repeats it. And then, the little girl answers. And finally, he's able to get through that first kid. He puts the box cutter away. He retracts the blade, puts the box cutter away. And then we hear Charlie's voice go, okay, kid, now you've got it the rest of the way. You were able to get through that first one. You're good to go. And that's exactly what happens. Billy is able to get through the whole day, seeing all these kids while fully dressed as Santa Claus from head to toe. And then that night is when Pamela shows up at his little apartment, the room that he's renting in town. And, they have wild sex. And we get that funny scene where she tells him to keep the Santa Claus costume on. I think that's in the trailer, actually. So we know that's there. And basically that night, Charlie in Billy's head says, hey, we got to go out. What are you doing? We need to go do this. And Billy's like, no, I don't want to do this anymore. And then Charlie's like, you know what happens if we don't go out and punish someone tonight? And Billy's like, yeah, I know what happens. And Charlie's trying to get him to say it out loud. What happens? And Billy's like, I don't want to say it. So then Charlie's like, okay, I'll fucking say it then. If you don't punish someone tonight, an innocent person dies. You know this. Now, Billy justifies it by saying innocent people die all the time, okay? There's nothing I can do about it, even though he's literally spent the last 10 years doing something about it. So it's kind of contradictory. Obviously, Billy's in love, but he's not interested in killing anymore. He wants to start a life with Pamela. He wants to stay in Hackett. But obviously, there's repercussions for him not doing his thing. So he doesn't kill anybody on the 23rd. And because of it, another kid goes missing. I also forgot to mention that this town has a rash of kids going missing, and someone called the Snatcher, who basically who's taking these kids. Now, none of the adults believe that there's actually a Snatcher. They think that these kids disappearing, is just coincidental, runaways, parents stealing their kids, and taking them away, whatever the case may be. Most of the adults in this town don't believe in the Snatcher story, but all the kids in the town spread it like it's an urban legend. The Snatcher is going to get you, blah, blah, blah. So when he doesn't kill anyone on the 23rd, another little kid goes missing. And the next morning, on the 24th, of course, Charlie tells him, did you notice the new missing poster, that new little kid that was missing, that went missing last night? Charlie instantly goes, unrelated. And, or not Charlie, excuse me, Billy says, nope, that's unrelated. And Charlie's like, you know it's not. You fucking know it's not unrelated. You didn't kill someone last night, and an innocent little girl died because of you. And Charlie's basically berating him, but you know, Billy is so head over heels in love that he's not even thinking about the things that Charlie's saying. So once again, it's now the 24th, Christmas Eve, and again, Billy ends up spending the night with Pamela and does not go out and kill someone. Once again, Charlie is urging him to go out and kill, because if he doesn't, an innocent person is going to die. But Billy basically reacts the same way he did the night before. But this time, Charlie is like, well, what happens when someone you care about is the innocent person that dies? Are you going to go back to doing your thing then? And Charlie, of course, or excuse me, Billy just kind of, you know, blows it off and says, whatever. But as we all know, we're watching a horror movie, so of course it's going to happen. That night, Pamela's father stays late at the store by himself to finish up some paperwork. While he's on his way, after locking up the store and walking to his car, he hears something moving in a van nearby. He ends up walking up to the van and he finds a little boy tied up in the back of the van. And he actually don't forget, Hackett is a small town, so pretty much everybody knows everybody. So, you know, Pamela's father instantly recognizes the kid, calls him out by name, and then says, I'm going to go get you some help. I'm going to go get you some help. But then suddenly we see someone approaching him from behind with a Santa Claus mask on, who unceremoniously just shoots him right in the back of the head, killing Pamela's father instantly. The next day, of course, Pamela is distraught. She's in bed crying. Billy starts to kind of put the pieces together that shit, I didn't go out and kill anybody the last 2 nights, and now the people that I care about are getting taken out. So at one point, now I forgot to kind of keep going with the description of Pamela. We already talked about how she has anger issues. She's also a true crime and serial killer buff. She actually loves true crime stuff. And after her father is killed, her and Billy are laying in bed together, and she basically says out loud, I wish I can find the motherfucker that did this so that I can slowly pull his body apart piece by fucking piece. And instantly you see Billy's expression change, like, oh shit, did I find a kindred spirit? So he literally starts to say to her, do you trust me? And then we hear Charlie's voice going, no, don't do it, kid. If you tell her what you are, she's gonna leave you. One way or another, she's gonna end up leaving you. Billy ends up ignoring Charlie and basically says to Pamela, what if I could actually make your wish come true? Pamela doesn't quite understand what he's talking about, but then they go on a car ride, and on the car ride is when Billy lays it all down on the line for Pamela. He lets her know that, you know, my parents were murdered when I was 8 years old. I saw them murdered by a man in a Santa Claus costume. And after he killed my parents, we touched hands and something happened where he basically became a part of me. Like his spirit, if you will, is dwelling inside of my head. And basically, Charlie is the eyes and Billy is the hands. So Charlie recognizes evil. He's the one who's been guiding Billy. He recognizes when someone is a serial killer, a drug dealer, you know, a rapist, whatever the case may be. And then he sends Billy to, you know, do what Billy has to do. After telling Pamela the story, she actually says, wow, so you're just kind of crazy, huh? And Billy's like, yeah, after hearing it out loud, I guess I kind of am. But then she grabs his hand and says, but I'm still here. And that's when we hear Charlie's voice going, oh shit, this might actually work out. You might have found a keeper. So basically at this point, Charlie is guiding Billy to the person who killed Pamela's father. When they get there, it's a Christmas tree like farm. Now, If you guys remember back to the very first scene where Billy was in the motel room with a dead body, that guy was both wearing a jacket and driving a truck from that same Christmas tree farm. So literally, and Billy recognizes it instantly. He's like, wait a minute, isn't that the guy that I took out earlier? But they end up getting to where they're going. They break in. Charlie keeps telling him, oh, he's here. He's definitely here. They end up breaking into the guy's like little dwelling, like his little shed that he's got like his bed and personal items in. Billy feels the bed and he can feel the warmth on the bed. So he knows that somebody's been there recently. So he knows the killer is somewhere right there. They're searching around. They can't find anything. They find some drug paraphernalia. They find some of the missing posters for the kids. But then Pamela steps on a board that turns out to be a trap door. They open the trap door, and inside of the trap door in the crawl space is a ball pit. Yes, my friends, a ball pit like you would have seen at Chuck E. Cheese or Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, whichever one you want to go with. Literally a ball pit like for kids, but it's in the crawl space of this guy's house. But then Pamela shines a flashlight down there and notices a pair of hands sticking out of the ball pit. And she starts screaming, oh my God, there's a kid in here. And as it turns out, yep, they found the snatcher. They basically found where the snatcher was taking the kids and where they were holding them until they did whatever. We never get confirmation on what they were doing with these kids, if this was a slave trade, if this was organ harvesting, whatever the case may be. But they were obviously doing something with these kids' bodies because they would hold them there. And because at this point, dozens of kids have gone missing from this town. But I think they only found like 3 kids in the ball pit that day. So the 3 most recent kidnappings. Anyway, Pamela jumps down into the ball pit. She helps the 3. They end up finding 3 kids down there, all of them still alive. She helps Billy pull them out of the crawl space. After she pushes the 3rd kid up through the trap door, the killer exposes himself, grabs Pamela from behind, puts his hand over her head, and puts a knife up against her throat. And then he kind of pulls her into the darkness away from the trap door so Billy can't see where they went. Billy then jumps down into the ball pit with his axe. And we hear Charlie's voice going, okay, I know exactly where they are. They're 3 feet to your left. He's holding Pamela down and he's on top of her. So Billy starts to cock his axe back, but then Charlie goes, whoa, whoa, whoa. I wouldn't use the axe. You might actually hurt Pamela. You can't see, where they physically are. Like I can tell you their general location, but I may not necessarily know exactly the angle or whatever. So Billy then puts his axe down and grabs his box cutter. And then we hear Charlie go, okay, start moving forward very slowly. Slowly. And then Charlie says, stop. And then he says, right there, right to your left. Billy takes his box cutter and starts stabbing at that general area. The snatcher still wearing the Santa Claus mask from earlier. So like I said, it's the guy that killed Pamela's father. He jumps out of the ball pit, releasing Pamela. Pamela is able to get away. Billy starts just stabbing this guy maniacally, but with a box cutter. I mean, a box cutter doesn't go very deep, unfortunately. While Billy is stabbing the snatcher with the box cutter, the snatcher pulls out the knife that he had up against Pamela's throat and starts stabbing Billy in the midsection. So literally, Billy is stabbing the snatcher in the chest with the box cutter. The snatcher is stabbing Billy at the exact same time. It was almost like a wild MMA fight where they're just throwing wild punches at each other. Then the camera goes back up above the ball pit where Pamela and the 3 kids are. She's listening to the commotion. Finally, she hears like a gurgle, like, somebody basically, choking on blood. And then it goes silent. And she's like, Billy, are you okay? Because she's not sure who's going to pop up, Billy or the snatcher. As it turns out, Billy pops up. And he's been stabbed multiple times in the midsection, so he's obviously worse for wear. And then Pamela asks, is he dead? Did you get him? And we hear Charlie's voice go, did you get him? You cut his head clean off with a box cutter, dude. Which unfortunately we don't get to see. It would have been great to see it, but whatever. After that, Billy tells Pamela to stay with the kids. He's going to go get the car, and so that they can all get out of there, because they still need to get those kids to a hospital before any of them ends up just dying from exposure or whatever. When Billy is outside getting the car, Max shows up. Max, the cop, who is also Pamela's ex-boyfriend, and without even saying anything, without saying freeze or what are you doing here, literally Max just pulls out his gun, shoots Billy twice in the chest, and Billy falls down. Pamela hears the gunshots from inside the house. She comes out, realizes that Max just shot Billy, so she starts freaking out. What the fuck did you do? Why would you do something like that? Blah, blah, blah. Billy then, or should I say Pamela then goes over to Billy, who now has multiple stab wounds, 2 gunshot wounds, plus all the bruises that he took from the Nazi party. And basically, he's on his last legs. He's about to die. Charlie starts saying, well, kid, it's been fun. I'm sorry that I didn't see that coming. I should have seen that coming. I should have been able to warn you, but unfortunately, I missed it. I'm sorry. And he says, I've had such a great time with you, over these last, I think 18 years in total. Because basically Billy was 8 years old when Charlie killed his parents, but Billy didn't make his first kill until he was 17. So basically Charlie was in Max's head talking to him for 9 years before Billy ever did anything. So credit to Charlie for not trying to make an 8-year-old become an avenging angel. He literally waited until he was older. We actually do get to see the scene where Billy kills or punishes his first bad person. And as it turns out, it's his foster parent, the last foster parent that he had. Like I said, there's a lot of scenes like that I kind of glossed over. So, if you're interested, please check out the movie. So as Billy is about to die, Charlie says, take Pamela's hand. And when he takes Pamela's hand, we get basically a carbon copy of what happened the night Charlie killed Billy's parents. We see that lightning effect, and we see something transfer from Charlie into Pamela. Now, Pamela, she ends up falling down. She ends up passing out. Max, who's still, apparently in love with her, is concerned about her. So he runs over, tries to wake her up, and she comes to. When she comes to, she looks at Max and starts getting the same kind of flashbacks that Billy's got when he would see a guilty person. And what do we find out? Fucking Max has been providing the Snatcher with those kids. We literally see a scene where the guy that Billy killed at the motel room, plus the guy in the Santa Claus mask, plus Max the cop are all working together. We see Max counting out a bunch of money as the Snatcher puts a kid in the trunk of his car. So Max has basically been, I don't know if he's the mastermind necessarily, but obviously he's the law enforcement, so he's the one keeping the Snatcher safe all these years. Once Pamela sees all of this, she does exactly what she said she almost did back in 8th grade. She literally bites Max's fucking nose off, literally bites it completely off. Max is then crawling away, trying to look for his gun, which he dropped. And then Pamela picks up the gun and says, hey, you looking for this? She throws the gun to the side because apparently Pamela agrees that guns are for pussies, just like Billy said. And she unceremoniously axes Max. She hits him with the axe at least a dozen times in the back, in the head, in the arm, just fucking decimates him. The only thing that bothered me is I wish she would have said something about knowing what Max was, because ultimately Max died not realizing that Pamela knew what he was. And I feel like that's just the cherry on top of your Justice Sunday, is to let them know, I know what you did. I know what you did to those kids. I know what kind of piece of shit you are. And now I'm going to bury my axe in your fucking forehead for it. But for whatever it's worth, it's still a satisfying scene. She ends up killing Max. And then as soon as she's done killing Max, we hear Billy say, hey. And she looks around, she looks at Billy's dead body on the ground, and she's like, what's going on? Where are you? And he's like, well, I'm everywhere. And then she goes, well, what now? And then Billy just goes, well, are you ready for this? And then the movie ends, goes to the credits, and that's the end. So Pamela is now our avenging angel moving forward, which is why both Mike and I said we would be down for sequels, because I would love to see Pamela as the new, vengeful Santa. I don't know. I mean, I wonder if she's actually going to wear a Santa Claus outfit or not. Because don't forget, Pamela has anger issues. So she might not even need the Santa Claus outfit. It's like once...
Mrs. Claus.
Yeah, well, you can go with that, I guess. But like I said, because of her anger management, I don't even think she needs the costume. Like once Billy, as the voice in her head, tells her that someone is guilty, it's like, I almost feel like Pamela would just be like, all right, fuck it, I'm going to go kill him. Like, I don't need your stupid Santa Claus costume. I don't know. I'm speculating, obviously. But yeah, there it is, folks. That is Silent Night, Deadly Night 2025. Definitely not for everyone, as I've already said. If you hate this movie, I totally understand. If you're a fan of the original and you're a fan of just more straightforward, fun slashers, because admittedly, this movie is not necessarily fun. The Nazi scene is fun, absolutely, but the movie definitely takes Billy with a little bit more of a serious tinge than the original, whereas the original was just campy, silly fun, just him going around punishing people that he thought deserved it. This one, we actually have an avenging angel who is actually punishing people who legitimately deserve it. So I could see why that might kind of ruin the movie for a lot of people. But for me personally, I fucking loved it. I love seeing bad people get their comeuppance in any form. But then you add a Nazi massacre in there, and my friends, I'm on board. I mean, sadly, this hasn't been the best year for slashers. This might actually be my favorite slasher of the year, believe it or not. It seems like supernatural horror and other subgenres of horror have kind of taken the limelight this year. And slashers have maybe kind of taken a back seat in 2025. But I'm glad that we were able to end the year with a solid slasher. One that I absolutely love. Again, I've already said it multiple times. It's not a perfect movie. It's not a 10 out of 10. It's probably not even anything that I'm going to return to every single December, but I definitely see myself watching this more often than I would watch the original Silent Night, Deadly Night in December. So there you go, folks. Take with that what you will. I'm not going to say that it's essential theater viewing. I mean, hopefully this thing hits VOD before the end of the year, but if it doesn't, I would say, check it out. I would still say go check it out in theater just to support the genre. I'm always down to go to the theater to watch horror because I want more horror in theaters. And when horror movies are more successful, even if it's movies that I don't agree with, that I don't like what the hell did we review last week that made $56 million on its opening weekend? Five Nights at Freddy's 2. Even though Five Nights at Freddy's 2 wasn't great in my opinion, I'm still going to support it because it's horror in the theaters. And I think we need more horror in theaters because nothing beats the theater experience. Yeah, it's great to have a nice big 75-inch TV in your house with a beautiful surround sound system, but nothing duplicates that theater experience. So like I said, if you have the spare time and the spare money, go ahead and support Silent Night, Deadly Night. And if you hated it, please hit us up on the socials and tell me why I'm wrong, because I walk away from this movie absolutely loving it. I'm on board for Billy Chapman. Praise Mike Nelson. This is his second horror remake in a row that I fucking love. And thank you, Rowan Campbell, for getting out of the shadow of Corey Cunningham, and now you can be in the shadow of Billy Chapman. So that's it for me. I'm gonna kick it back to Mike to close us out.
All right. Yeah, that's gonna do it for Silent Night, Deadly Night 2025. This episode of Fresh Cuts and Fresh Cuts for 2025 outside of our list show, but usually the list show gets recorded early in the following year. So cool for everyone that stuck with us for another year. Venom, generally speaking, without any consideration for what you still need to rewatch or track down to watch, like, how are you feeling going into our list show about this year?
I mean, we have this conversation every year where people talk about, oh, this year was weak in horror, this year was strong in horror. But ultimately, when you watch as much horror movies as the three of us do, you're gonna find good horror movies. Even in a slow horror year, you're still gonna find gems, diamonds in the rough, be they foreign horror, be they low budget horror that, didn't play in theaters, whatever the case may be. I feel like if you watch as many horror movies as we do, you're gonna find stuff that you like and stuff that you can praise. As far as 2025 goes, looking at my list right now, I feel like the top of the top was great. Like I've got two 10 out of 10s for 2025. I don't remember. I think it hasn't been since 2018 that I've had two 10 out of 10s in the same year. So, and obviously with 2018, that was Hereditary and what, The Lighthouse, I think? Or no, The Lighthouse was 2019. I forget what the second movie was. That I gave a 10 out of 10 to that year. But yeah, not since 2018 have I had two 10 out of 10s. And this year I have had two 10 out of 10s. So the top of the, the cream of the crop is still really, really great. It's kind of that middle of the road, the movies that would rank like between like a 5.5 and a 7.5, where we didn't get a lot of great ones this year. A lot of those great middle of the road movies that are fun one-time watches. You may not return to it later on, but it was fun the first time. So I will say that the middle, as far as quality goes, the mid-range of movies in 2025 was a little lacking. But I mean, considering that as I look at my top five, everything in my top five is like a 9 or above. And for me, that says something about the year 2025. It may not have been that all-encompassing great year that 2018 was, but I still found plenty to watch, plenty to enjoy, and plenty to praise. And you'll be hearing all about it on our list show probably the first week of January. So yeah, I'm very happy with 2025. Obviously, not the best year of horror ever, but I'm not going to sit here and call it a weak year, because as I look at my list, I think I watched 118 movies this year, which is still kind of low actually for me. I usually hit like the 130s, 140s, but I started working this year and working ridiculous hours. So unfortunately, my movie watching suffered for it. But yeah, I'm not going to say anything negative about 2025. There's plenty to watch, plenty to praise, and overall, I'm happy with the year.
Yeah, I think I got about 3 or 4 movies that after I saw them the first time, I was pretty sure they'd be on my list. And like now that we're kind of at the end of the year, I'm like, yep, they're still pretty much there. But outside of those, I'm like, it's gonna be kind of like a wild card, like maybe 6 to 7 movies that I got.
I mean, I had a lot of surprises in 2025. Like, obviously, this movie, Silent Night, Deadly Night, was a surprise for me. We started out the year with the Wolfman remake, which I know a lot of people were down on. I loved it. I absolutely loved that Wolfman remake. I loved the different things that they did with it. So, that I was happy with. Just overall, I was fairly happy with the year. Like I said, not the strongest year ever, but at my list right now, I mean, there's some heavy hitters on here, and I'm very happy for that. So, and we went to the theater, like 38 times in 2025. So, I mean, that's praiseworthy right there, because back in like 2018, the year that a lot of us consider one of the best years of horror over the last 10, 20 years, we only had 24 horror movies in theaters. This year we had 37 or 8. So, yeah, I'm happy. I'm, it could have been better, yes, but I don't like to harp on what could have been. I like to appreciate what I got, and what I got in 2025 overall, I'm happy with. So I'll leave it at that.
All right. Well, more on that in a few weeks when we record our list show. But until then, anything else new at the end of this year that you have for people to listen to?
Well, just like I said last week, we have the latest episode of Creature Comforts, our December episode. And for only the second time in our almost 4-year 4-year existence of the show, we're doing a brand new movie. And for the first time on Creature Comforts, we're doing a true sequel, an actual, legitimate direct from the original sequel. So, and that is, of course, Troll 2, which dropped on Netflix this past December 1st. We reviewed the original Troll back in 2022 on Creature Comfort, so obviously we're going to keep that streak going. And if you saw Troll 2, you know that there's more than likely a Troll 3 coming in another few years, so look for that one, also on Creature Comforts. But yeah, that's about all I have. My December podcast appearances that I had been talking about just never panned out. Nothing really came of it, so I got a funny feeling that this will probably be the last thing I record this year, unless something falls into my lap. Otherwise, goodbye 2025.
All right. How about you, Don? Anything?
Creature Comforts. That one should be available. Looking forward to a few potential guest spots in January. I know one show, but I can't say what the date is just because it's something that's going to be. I'll reveal it a little bit closer to when it comes time to record that. But yeah, other than that, this potentially will also be my final podcasting trip of 2025. So guess more than likely the next time I record something is going to be the year-end show. So that'll be the next time I have something else.
All right, cool. Well, in that case, we're closing the book or turning the page to the final chapter of 2025.
I can't say that until we do the year-end show. So
yeah, and technically, folks, we do still have one theatrical horror movie opening this year, but it's a horror comedy. It is, of course, the Anaconda remake, which drops on Christmas Day. Now, considering that movie stars Jack Black and Paul Rudd, I'm of the assumption that it's going to be more comedy than a horror. So it likely wouldn't be anything we would do on this show anyway.
There was also a thing where they actually sent a letter. I think it was either Bloody Disgusting or I Horror. I can't remember which one, but they actually sent a letter blasting them for putting it in their December horror roundups because they didn't want it promoted with horror movies.
I mean, the trailer makes it look like comedy.
Yeah, so. Yeah, exactly. I did accidentally see that trailer.
You could get away with being called like a creature feature because I mean, some creature features do have comedy and give you the kind of the big over the top.
I'm just saying. I'm trying to remember who it was because I mean, going off of what Venom said, because that sparked what I remember was that I think it was either Bloody Disgusting or if it was I Horror. I can't remember which one, but they got a letter from the makers of the movie blasting them for putting it on their horror release list because they didn't want people to think it was a horror movie.
Yeah. I mean, if you see the trailer, it's fairly apparent that it's a comedy.
To me, it's like, what category do you put Cocaine Bear in? It's probably along the lines of that.
I would probably say this one's even more comedy than Cocaine Bear, because Cocaine Bear, at least, well, I mean, granted, we haven't seen the movie yet, so who knows? Maybe it'll actually be gory. I don't know. Though I can't imagine something with Jack Black and Paul Rudd being ultra gory, but fingers crossed. I mean, I'm gonna see it regardless. Probably not on Christmas Day, maybe the next day, but yeah, I'm still gonna check it
I'll
out.
probably
Just
see it that weekend because
yeah.
even though No Other Choice opens some places Christmas, I think we're not getting it in my city till January 9th. So otherwise,
Oh,
I would have been seeing that weekend.
oh, that's weird. Yeah, I'm looking at my AMC app right now, and yeah, it says December 25th for Anaconda. And then what? That We Bury the Dead movie, January 2nd. So that might be our first episode of, well, I mean, not counting the list show, of course, but yeah, the first 2 weeks of
First
January, we've got
2026.
We Bury the Dead and Primate. So we're starting out the year with some horror as usual. So hopefully, at least one of them is watchable.
All right, then. Well, thanks everyone for listening to the latest episode of Fresh Cuts. We'll be back in a few weeks with our top 10 show. Until then, cram along with us all your last minute 2025 movies and rewatches, and let us know what you think of our selections when we reveal them on the next episode. So let's say bye to our listeners.
Later.
Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Joyous Kwanzaa, whatever the fuck you celebrate. Have a great one. Have an awesome new year. We'll see you in 2026. And I don't know. Hopefully 2026 will be an upswing for our genre. And like I've already said, it's not like I look at 2025 as a bad year, just, a little down is all. So here's looking forward to 2026.
Punish.
Ha! Naughty.